this week.
We were all able to get our 5-man limit by mid-afternoon. We set out to explore Easton and the rest of the Eastern Shore.
Previously on Drake's Migration Nation.
Our relationship with Michael Day began several years ago when Michael came down from Maryland to our kennels to look at a young started dog named Harley. We realized that no waterfowling season would be complete without a trip to Chesapeake Bay and the Eastern Shore of Maryland. We drove all night from West Tennessee, but we finally made it to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So you're letting that part over there rest. We're not going to hunt over there until later on in the week because you want to keep the birds feeding in there, right?
What they do is they'll come early morning into the impoundment and then they'll trade back and forth.
It was a real treat to sit there and watch David do it the way that they've been doing it for generations there around Chesapeake Bay. Put your hands! 23 ducks, 4 geese, so I'd say that's a pretty successful hunt. We're gonna come back down to the pond in the morning. We're gonna see if we can do a little bit more. One of the interesting things about this trip is the way that we got to watch the conditions change and the hunting patterns change along with it. On the first day when we got there, it'd been very, very cold and there was still a lot of ice on the pond, and the geese wanted to come into that open water and we were very successful. On the second day, the ducks still wanted to get into the corn and they really hit the flooded impoundment well, but the geese didn't do so hot. By day 3, we figured out that the geese really didn't need the fuel that a high carbohydrate food like corn provides, and they'd quit coming to the fields, so we decided that we'd change gears once again and move back to the pond. Since we had a southeasterly wind this morning, we went to the opposite side of the pond from where we'd hunted on day 1 and hunted facing back toward the northwest. There we go, boys. That's got it. That was a nice way to end the morning hunt, I'll tell you. Those two worked in really nice. They turned, came right around. David called the shot right at the right time, and that's a great way to end the day. After we got done hunting that day, we set out to explore Easton and the rest of the eastern shore. Thanks to some very aggressive calling by David and a little bit of patience on behalf of the hunting party, we were all able to get our 5-man limit by mid-afternoon, and we set out to explore Easton and the rest of the eastern shore. We drove around Easton for a little while, checked out some of the local shops and took in a little bit of the local flavor, and then we decided to head on down to St. Michael's and take a look at the Maritime Museum. The Maritime Museum is a very interesting place. This museum includes an active boatyard where they are currently restoring several old boats and shifts from years gone by. It also includes a museum with displays of the boats and sink boxes that were used by the market hunters of Chesapeake Bay when market hunting was in its heyday. While we were there, we even got to meet one of the master boat builders who took us on a tour of the place, let us crawl below deck of a couple of the boats they're restoring, and even gave us a little bit more information on the history of sink boxes and sneak boat hunting around Chesapeake Bay. During the wintertime, if I understand it correctly, Mr. McLeod, the two main sources of income here on Chesapeake Bay were oystering and waterfowling. Is that right?
That's correct.
Wow. So they would come out here November through March,
Yes, yep.
and these crews would spend a week at a time on these boats, actually living down here in the galley and sleeping in the forecastle while they stayed out dredging for oysters on Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
We
Yep,
thought we
they
were tough
would.
as duck hunters, man.
Yeah, they'd be dressed up live in their slickers all week long. I mean, the boat would be covered with ice. It was a tough existence, a really rough way to make a living. This would have been an area where they would have slept, forecastle.
May I go below?
Yes, yeah, watch your head, you're kind of a tall guy, so
I'd have had a hard
you may
time
not be
on
down there very long.
Yeah.
But
We're below decks here in the forecastle or forecastle of an old oyster boat. And this particular boat was originally built in 1889 and currently it's being restored here at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. And here in the forecastle or the forecastle of the boat, believe it or not, this small cramped area would be the sleeping quarters for part of the crew of the boat. Amazing. I guess of all of these, the most notorious is the sink box. Now, this boat obviously couldn't go out under power, so how did they get it out on Chesapeake Bay?
oh, they'd have to go out in their own, a small power boat or row it out. They'd have to tow it out one way or the other and drop a couple of little anchors and usually keep it in one spot, like a blind that might be out on the point.
The area where the hunter sits in this, it's called the coffin.
Yeah.
To me, that seems kind of ironic. It looks like it would be a pretty dangerous position to be in.
He's almost below the surface, and it really wouldn't take much of a wave to wash over, and it would become a coffin.
Very, very neat. Thank you, Mr. McLeod. I really appreciate you taking
you're
the time
welcome.
to talk to us this afternoon. St. Michael's is both rich in waterfowling history and American history. Not only is it home to the Maritime Museum, but it is also known as the town that fooled the British. During the War of 1812, gun runners and blockades frequently came in and out of this little port, and the British Navy soon took notice and decided that it had to go. Fortunately, the citizens of the town were forewarned, And before the British Navy came in, they took lanterns and attached them to the highest mast of ships and the tallest trees in the area. When the British cannons began to fire, they thought they were much farther from the bank than they actually were, and they managed to overshoot all of their targets, hitting only one house in the entire town. This victory has went down in history, and forever that house will be known as the Cannonball House, and St. Michael's will be the town that fooled the British Navy. In addition to the patterns of the birds changing, the wind had continued to change throughout the week. And on day 4, we experienced a crosswind. Instead of being able to put it really at our backs, we kind of had it coming over our shoulders as we moved back to the northwest side of the pond and hunted the birds facing toward the southeast. When we got into the blind that day, we were joined by one of David Price's good friends and fellow Eastern Shore guide, Tommy Dodds. That's the way to put a stop on them right there. Right. It's funny.
I took the right, you took the left.
We're done quick.
Where's the other one?
It's over there.
It's over there. Look at Harley disappear under that water. That was fantastic. Tommy's been calling those geese all morning. They've just been really, really fickle. And all of a sudden we look up and we've got 2 of them coming straight into the decoys. And one of us took the left bird, the other one took the right. Couldn't have worked out any better if we'd planned it that way.
I figured there's no way that bird would get out of here.
You know, that was something because we had so many birds coming around, but when that one committed, yeah, there wasn't any way he was leaving here. Luckily for us, we were able to put in a full week here hunting, and it really paid off. On the 5th day, the weather pattern looked like it was about to change. The forecast was for a cold front to push through during the day, and David and Tommy decided that it was time for us to switch up our tactics once again to fool these geese and come out with a really large, elaborate spread. Back out here this morning at the same pond that we've been at for the last several days, the geese have started to get just a little bit stale. So this morning we've got a change in weather, and we're also going to make a little bit of change to our spread. We've been going with just a few dozen full bodies and maybe half a dozen to a dozen floaters. This morning we're going to really change it up. We're fixing to put out a magnum spread, a couple hundred decoys, a whole lot of floaters, hopefully making it different. And with the change in the weather, we're going to have an even better day. We've heard a lot of ducks up here on the impoundment, so we know we've got a lot of ducks that have moved into the pond. It's a good indicator that the geese are still here too. And by putting out this big spread, hopefully we'll lure in some of these birds that have been here for a while.
Got some good weather coming in. Got ducks right here behind us on the other impoundment. I think we're gonna have a good morning. We're probably tripling the size of the spread that we're using today. I think we'll do all right with them.
There are a lot of people that believe that Canada geese do not like to fly over duck decoys to get into a spread. So we're gonna pull our duck decoys over here to one side, where when the geese come in, they don't have to push right over. I don't know whether it's true or not. They don't like to fly over them. We're going to do it this way just in case they're right.
We're going to take the snows up on top of the hill and put them right on the outskirts of the Canada geese. So that way when the snows come over, that go over top of Canada and toll right to the top of the hill here, because otherwise if you mix them in, the Canadas don't like to mingle together, so we'll put them on top. So hopefully that'll work.
Off of this side though.
Yeah.
So we want to.
We want to keep the ducks way left then, don't you think?
Yeah. There's so many people that put little spreads out. I like putting a big rig out. And when I hunt in the field, I want 500, 600, maybe even 1,000 decoys. So we're putting a big rig out this morning.
Frequently, when you have a major change in the weather, you're also going to see a change in the pattern of the ducks and geese in the area. Sometimes it means that birds that are already slow to work will just shut down completely. But more often than not, you're going to see this weather change cause the birds to become more active and even move new ducks and geese into the area. That was certainly the case on our 5th day. From much earlier than we'd been used to seeing them in the morning, we started seeing large groups of geese come out of the fields and migrate over us, heading either toward Chesapeake Bay or to other areas to feed.
One right now with the decoys. Today's the last day of our hunt, the 5th day, and really not ready to go home yet. It's been some excellent shooting, and I think with the change of weather that we've got and just the indication of the goose over our decoys right now, this is going to be a really good morning. All in all, it's been exactly what we'd hoped for. You know, here on the Eastern Shore, got to go down to Easton, see where they hold the World Championship Goose Calling Contest every year. It's great to go down to the Maritime and Waterfowling Museum, St. Michael's, and get to look at the way that the rugged people of this area used to do it. Just a whole lot of nostalgia here, and still a wonderful place to come for both ducks and geese.
That one came in, he was completely set. Tommy, that was some great calling, man. You ready, girl? Ella! Yeah, baby! I wish it had coming down like that. Called the duck in with a goose call, and it sounded like. Sit. Ella! Hey. Down, he's down. Oh man, that was a good shit you got. Thank you. Good job. That was nice. Good job, guys. The bird swung around beautifully. Let Harley have that if you'd like. Harley! That bird swung around really, really nice. Take it, right there, take it. There we go. Yeah, that's it. All right. Way to close it out there. As we closed out our 5 limits on that last day, we realized it was time to go in and pack up our bags and head on home. Even though it's always hard to leave the field after an incredible week of hunting, we realized that we got to spend some real quality time in the heart of some of America's waterfowling heritage. We got to see some neat sights, learn a little bit about both waterfowling and American history, and spend time with some really good people like Michael, David, and Wayne, and other members of the Migration Nation on the eastern shore of Maryland.
Want to join the Migration Nation? Go to drakesmigration.com to find out how.